Hey everyone, welcome to the Grace Auburn podcast. My name is Lee, executive pastor here at Grace Auburn Church and host to the Grace Auburn podcast. I'm joined today by my friend, fellow pastor, Caleb Farrow. Welcome, brother.
Hello, everyone.
So we are in part 3 of a leadership conversation here at Grace Auburn. For the last several episodes, we've been talking about what does leadership at Grace Auburn look like, talking about our structure. I was joined by Carrie Bradley and Dave Meadows, talking about elders, pastors, staff, and introducing the idea of deacons. The last episode of the podcast was with Kevin Briggins, specifically drilling down into the new office of deacons, at least new for Grace Auburn, not new in terms of the church, but very ancient and original to its structure. Talking about what a deacon is, how a deacon serves in the life of a healthy local church, what deacons are and are not. If you are joining this podcast and this is the first time you've listened to it, I highly recommend going back to the beginning of the Who We Are series of the podcast. These 8 episodes, and we're in week 3 of this stretch of 8. These podcasts are designed really with 2 purposes. One, for the members of our church to be reminded of some things maybe you've forgotten or you haven't thought, or maybe you've taken for granted, how we're structured, why we're structured that way, what is an elder, why are we elder-led, what does it mean to be congregational, some of those types of things. Are we different than maybe other denominations that are also congregational? But for our members, it should serve as both reminder and encouragement to you in the way that we've covenanted with one another. But if you're joining Grace Auburn this fall for the first time, and let's say you're joining us after we've moved in at Skyway, you've missed almost 8 years of history. And so what you may take for granted or you may not yet know is that when you plant a church, there are things you know for sure, and there are things that you grow along the way in. And today, Caleb and I are talking about our leadership development here at Grace Auburn. When we think about our college students specifically, as the Lord has brought them literally from all over the world to be a part of this gathering of believers here in Auburn, but there are myriad opportunities for them as members of the church to serve the church. We expect our college students to become members just like every other adult. We think they are adults. We treat them as such. We call our college students adults from day one, and that may be disorienting for them in some ways, but they're in a unique season of life. They've got more free time and maybe less resources than they'll ever have for the rest of their life. And so in thinking through that, we asked, Lord, how can we as a church plant develop, grow, serve, bring along these young people who might be called to vocational ministry? And we'll get into the different pathways that we have here at Grace Auburn in just a few moments. Or maybe they just wanted to serve their church in a unique, maybe deeper way or more time-committed kind of way. And so for us, as we think about students and planting here in Grace Auburn, Matt Dean, our lead pastor, and both myself, we collectively were in campus ministry, specific ministries, whether parachurch or within the local church, for a combined 25 years before planting Grace Auburn. And so when we planted this church, specifically when Matt and his family planted Grace Auburn in 2018, and then Lacey and I joined the staff in January of 2019, college ministry was front and center in terms of how we are going to impact our community, but also how we are going to stand, so to speak, at the crossroads of some of these young folks' lives and say, would you please consider Jesus? With whatever you do in your life, would you consider Jesus? And so from almost what feels like day one, we developed a heart for developing leaders. And so out of that came our very first interns. Their internship was wildly different than our current internship, but what that started for us was a journey down a road of asking, how can we develop young leaders, not so that we can keep all of them, though we would love to keep some of them, whether they be in vocational ministry or marketplace ministry, and they're just deeply committed members of this church who serve along the way, like so many faithfully do, but that the majority of our college students, whether that be, 10 in that first year who were all 100% involved in the Bradley's community group, or it be in the hundreds now as we think about college students. What is the unique opportunity that we have? And so we developed the intern program with that in mind of who are our students who want to serve in greater capacities, who are our students who might be called to vocational ministry, might not be called to vocational ministry. And we began with a year-long internship that was, as I think back on it, and Fuller can attest to this, having been in maybe version 2.0 of this, it was way too many hours and way too little pay. Like, let's just call it what it is, right? Like, hey, we would love for you to do that, and we can't pay you anything. But, man, we can love you, serve you, walk alongside of you, help you grow into whatever the Lord may have for you next. And fast forward, it's been through many iterations. Some of our conversations, just a recent conversation that I had with Brooke Silver in terms of asking her, why would you want to work for a church? I think she's been through multiple iterations of job titles and descriptions. And in some ways, that's the nature of working at a church plant. I mean, we've all, you included, have had numerous areas of ministry that you are no longer leading, for you specifically, student ministry. That's a little bit of the history in terms of where we've been and how we've gotten to today. I'd love, Caleb, to pick your brain on Matt and I developing that program, starting it, really planting seeds, watching the Lord grow that as we faithfully continued to just show up in the lives of college students. You coming on our staff team, taking on both student ministry and then eventually student and campus ministry. I'd love to do two things. I didn't prep you for this. I'd love for you to talk about kind of where we are today as you entered into our staff team, but really how the Lord has grown you from someone who prior to Grace Auburn was solely in student ministry, 6th through 12th grade ministry, how the Lord has really grown you and your desire to develop not only all of our college students, but specifically to lean in heavy with these that have said, hey, we'll do whatever it takes. Truly a first-generation mindset. We'd love to intern. I have no idea what that means. It actually amazes me that so many of them sign up to be an intern. They're like, that sounds great.
Let me do that.
without really knowing all the details of it.
Yeah.
I get that that's a lot. I kind of threw a lot at you just there. Jump in. I'd love to hear your take on where we are today, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah.
We'll get into the nuances of the difference between internship, apprenticeship or summer residency, and kind of the evolution of that role, and then the residency as well. But more your heart behind it.
Yeah. As I think about one of the messages that we continue to put forward towards our interns especially, but all college students as a whole is, and you said it earlier, is you are adults in a unique season of life. And as we think about the unique season of life is a temporary one for them.
Yeah.
And so they kind of have a cap of 3 to 5 years typically. And if they go to grad school, it's a little longer, or if they like to coast through undergrad as I did, it's a little longer as well. But I think that there are two ways that you can look at college students, especially in a college town, is you can look at them that way and honoring the season that they're in. Or you can look at them as a commodity or a resource to be expended. And I think what you and Matt did so well at the onset is said, we're not going to do that in that way.
Yeah.
We're going to raise up leaders and we're going to send them.
Yeah.
And so that takes a heavier investment from us.
Yeah, no doubt.
That takes a lot of work from us and time to honor them in that way and to protect their time, because we're teaching them how to be adults in some capacities, and we're teaching them how to keep a calendar a lot of times and to say, hey, you've said yes to a lot of things. You actually can't do all of those things. Let me help walk alongside you and teach you how to do this better in the future. And in a lot of ways, that is now the heartbeat of the internship, that our goal, and I know you said we'll talk about this later, but I'm going to talk about it now.
Okay, go.
Because you handed it to me.
Oh, right.
Is our goal for the internship is to raise up young men and women who will be better church members wherever they land. And so if they end up staying here, that's great. We want them to be better church members at the end of their internship than they were before they started.
Yeah.
But we really want to send them to wherever they go, and that they will be faithful followers of Jesus and invested in their local church, and that their local church is better because of their involvement.
Yeah.
And part of that was due to the DNA that they learned here.
Yeah.
And so we don't want our interns to leave here being fully drained of energy, time, capacity, and spiritual and spiritual depth. We want them to be full of life as they leave. And so there is a lot of investment that we pour into them, while there is a lot that we do ask of them, because often the first things that we lay in front of them that we're asking them to say yes to is a lot of things that they're going to have to commit to being a part of.
Yeah.
And it's going to look like from the onset on paper going, wow, that's a lot for zero pay. But that's okay, because what we're investing in them is much greater than a pay, but also than what we're asking of them.
Yeah.
And we've designed the internship to be just that. And so I do get questions from other leaders in other churches of, you only ask that much of your interns, and asking why we don't ask more of them, because they could give more. I mean, many of them have the capacity,
no doubt,
to give more. And truthfully, it's because we don't want to be a life suck on them. Like, we want the church to build them up, not take from them.
Right.
But at the same time, what we've learned is when we do that, they give more of themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we have a time commitment that we ask them to give, but man, they give so much more out of their love for their people and for their church and for the ministries that they're serving in, that we don't ask of them, because they see us doing that to them.
Yeah,
we're giving more of ourselves than we say we're going to give of them.
That's good.
And they watch it happen, and so they then do that.
Yeah, that's good.
And that is what we want from all of us.
Right.
Like, that's what God wants from all of us, is that out of the love and overflow of first the gospel and love for Jesus, but second for his church, his bride, that we give of ourselves in that way.
Yeah, that's good.
And so overall, that is the scope and heartbeat of the internship program, and how it's kind of developed over the years. And specifically what God has done in me, as I get to have these phone calls at the beginning of each year and asking them to be an intern, or the end of the school year to ask them to be an intern for the next school year.
Right.
That really is my heart for them, is to invite them closer, to be able to put our arms around them so that we can send them full of life to wherever they go.
That's good.
And love for Jesus.
All right. That's a little bit of the why, the philosophy of not only college ministry, but specifically developing young leaders who are here for a very, let's just call it short, a very short season of time, regardless of how long it takes them to be here.
Yeah, we're not going to judge.
No judgment whatsoever. Let's talk about the internship first. When we say leader development, while there is sort of a pathway that you could walk, they are also somewhat independent and really based on our discretion as leaders and pastors of where we think your giftings, your calling, your unique season, whether you be ready to graduate, already graduated, what you see as your vocational next steps beyond school.
Yeah.
But if we were to whiteboard this and try to just kind of outline, hey, this is kind of a basic framework, who's the internship for? Like, when you think about the ideal candidate, who is an intern at Grace Auburn? Let's talk about things like how long is it? What is their commitment?
Yeah.
Maybe what a typical week might look like. I'll kind of remind you of those second ones. But
yeah,
who's the internship for?
Yeah, the internship is for a faithful follower of Jesus who is a member of Grace Auburn.
All right.
Those are the first two categories, and typically, because of season of life, it's going to be a college student.
Sure.
We wait. We don't ask freshmen, and that's not because we have a problem with freshmen. We actually love freshmen deeply.
We're so glad you're here.
And because of that, we want to give you time to settle in, to see DNA, to understand the church that you're committing to.
That's good.
And so we ask sophomores to serve their junior year, or juniors to serve their senior year. That just gives us some background to know they've been here for a year.
Yeah,
they've served faithfully for a semester. There's some history here that we can knowingly ask them into more.
Yeah.
And there have consistently been positive outcomes from that mindset. And so we ask that our college students are members of Grace Auburn, because that means that they're known by someone. They're known by staff members. They're known by a pastor, because they walked through the membership process.
Yeah.
Typically, they're going to be serving somewhere else already, whether that's Grace Kids on a Sunday morning, hospitality, or student ministry, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then what we ask them into is an internship with Grace Auburn. We don't ask them into an internship with the student ministry or the college ministry or the kids ministry. We ask them into serving and committing to serve in whatever manner is deemed necessary by the leadership. And so for some of them, it's going to be right in where they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Some of them have a passion for serving in hospitality and making coffee, and we're going to ask them to do that. Some of them are going to have that same passion and not get to make one cup of coffee the whole time they're serving with us.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, we try to pair the desire that they have with the need of the church, but sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. And what that helps do, it helps remind all of us, including myself, of what we talk about in internal conversations of this first generation mindset.
That's good.
And the first generation mindset, for those who have never heard that term, is a mindset that when you are church planting and you are the first generation of membership at that church, you have to come into that situation with hands open going, what is needed? I will serve in that capacity, not the second or third generation mindset, which is what would I like to do? And I'll only serve in that way.
Yeah.
And so it helps kind of recreate and continue that DNA from the leadership down in our college ministry, especially.
Yeah.
And so all of our interns come into it knowing that may be asked of them to do things that they would not have chosen to do, but God's going to be faithful to grow them in those capacities as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's who it's for. What's the duration of the internship? Can you do it multiple years in a row? Is it a single year? Is it a full year? What's a week look like? How many hours in a week?
Yeah.
Some of the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, so the interns are asked to commit a school year. And so sometimes it ends up being just a semester, but it's semester to semester, but it is a school year that we ask them to commit to. So so the summer, they're not here serving as an intern. Over Christmas break, they're not here serving as an intern, that kind of thing. But so it's a school year commitment. It is weekly, about 10 to 15 hours. Some weeks is 10, some weeks is 15-hour commitment. And that commitment involves a shift, a quote unquote shift on Sunday morning, because right now we have 3 services, and many of us are here from 7 to 1, and so on a Sunday. And so if we ask our interns to do that, there's half of their time.
Right.
Right. So we ask them to come in. We ask them to attend a service as a member of Grace Auburn, and then to be available to serve a service as a member of Grace Auburn.
Yes.
And as an intern.
Okay.
And so we kind of delegate each week what that looks like in terms of, are there holes in the Grace Kids team that they need somebody to step into because somebody was sick or someone's kid is sick and they can't serve, or is there a spot in hospitality that needs some help based on that Sunday? And so they kind of jump in those capacities. And then they're available to relationally connect with college students that are here that we see are in need of connecting to the life of the church, whether they're members and they've, for whatever reason, kind of drifted away from attending a community group, or they're members and aren't in a community group, or whatever needs we see, we kind of help them structure their time to meet with one to 3 college students throughout the week, other college students, and then also every Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. there's what we call the intern class, and that's an opportunity that we get to really pour into them.
Yeah.
We invest in them.
Yeah.
And so pastors, staff members, elders spend time in those classes, sharing their heart with them.
That's good.
And pouring into them. And sometimes there's a book that we go through together. Sometimes there's a Bible study. Sometimes this past year there was church history. There was a lot of different seminary-esque type classes that were, and teaching that was done, canonization of the Bible, like different things like that we kind of pour into and invest in them in that way. And so that happens every Thursday afternoon. And I have a hand in that, but that's primarily led by our residents that we'll get into talking about here in just a minute. But that's kind of a scope of what the weekly ask of our interns are.
Yeah, that's good. If you're joining our church and you're joining our church for the first time at Skyway, just for context, this episode's released in September. It was recorded over the summer, and so at 720 East Glen, our former home, if you're listening to this later in the fall, trying to ask what is it like for me to be involved. Yes, we were at 3 services, and at one point we were at 4, and it was nonsense, and we are no longer at that. We are thankful for it. If you're listening to this when it's released, we're so eager and excited about the days ahead as we move into Skyway. It's literally days at this point, and we could not be more excited to welcome and connect with more college students and more families and ask, Lord, how would you help us grow more of these young leaders who are getting involved here in the life of our church? All right, you mentioned residents. I think in some ways when I thought about the intern program, I really saw it as kind of the really the kind of the capstone of all things leader development at Grace Auburn. I think at the time, the idea of someone sticking around for 3 years after school, and at the time with no local seminary, thinking about what does it look like for someone who feels called to be a pastor, wants to go to seminary, but they're here with us.
Yeah.
My experience of that had been online classes that were pre-recorded and you're trying to interact. Just the whole scope of that was so far outside of what our current reality is in terms of things like having Christ Our Redeemer Seminary here in town or hybrid models that RTS does. I know our residents currently are involved in that program where they go down for classes. They're back here taking classes online. They're back and forth, really in a learning cohort type style gathering. The residency was really birthed out of, oh man, there's another step we can take with not just college students who are like, sign me up, I've got time, I'd love to serve. The residency is far more involved. It is a far greater commitment. So I'll ask you the same questions. Who's the residency for?
So the residency is for those that are called into vocational ministry.
Okay.
It's a 3-year commitment. And in that 3-year commitment to Grace Auburn, they are also committed to starting seminary. And I use that intentionally because some of our current residents have chosen to endeavor on a program that will take them far longer than 3 years.
Yes.
So they will not finish in this time frame that they are committed to serving here.
All right.
But in that 3 years, our goal is to train and equip them to launch into the next season of ministry that God has called them to and be well prepared for that. And so their first year of residency, you cool if I break it down?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, do.
The first year of residency is kind of a wide open scope of, man, you're serving in every area of the life of the church. I introduced our newest resident to a church member a couple of days ago, and she asked him, she said, so what is your job? And I answered for him. I said, his job is yes. He says yes to anything that's asked of him within the time capacity that he's committed to. And that truly is the heartbeat, because we want them to get a deeper understanding of every area of ministry.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially if they're going to end up leading a local church. Like, we want them to know what it's like to serve in kids ministry.
That's right.
We want them to know what it's like to make coffee and to organize and structure those who are serving in the life of the church. We want them to know these things so that they don't take them for granted, so that they understand how difficult some of these tasks are, even though they may not seem like it from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
But also to know how to lead different people who are equipped in different ways.
Yeah.
And so the first year is just this wide scope of serving. And it also gives us an opportunity as pastors to observe them and to see they may feel called to one area of ministry, and we can look at them and go, there's no gifting in that area. Like, we love that you feel that way. One of us is missing it when it comes to our relationship with the Lord and hearing from Him, because we don't see it. And to help them navigate, and sometimes it's been navigating towards what God's doing in them. And then the second year is more leadership opportunities in that area.
That's good.
And so if they feel called to college ministry is the one that I live in, and so I'll use that as an example. If they feel called to college ministry, year 2 is we want them to speak at campus. We want them to have an opportunity to preach in that capacity in front of college, in a room full of college students, to know what that feels like, the weight of that moment, the pressure.
Yeah.
We want them to meet regularly and more often, spend more of their time meeting with college students. And then year 3 of the residency is a more full responsibility of leadership in that area of ministry. And so if it is college ministry, they are rather than preaching once a semester, they're going to preach 3 times a semester.
Yeah, that's good.
And they're going to jump that up to feel the weight of what it feels like to preach, and then go, okay, I got to get ready to do it again.
Yep.
And then also to know what it's like to go back to back meetings with college guys or college girls.
Yeah.
To kind of feel that. And it's really our way of helping them do ministry and learn ministry in a safe environment.
That's good.
Where we can come alongside them and help them understand how they can do this in a better way, more sustainable way, to continue in longevity of faithfulness to the Lord and ministry for the duration of their life. And so we categorize that in kind of 4 buckets. The whole thing, internship and residency, we've categorized this in kind of 4 buckets of observe, learn, serve, and lead. And so all of those observe, learn, serve, and lead buckets they're weighted differently each year.
That's good.
And same is true for internship. They're weighted differently each week for the interns. Right. Sometimes they're heavy leading, and sometimes they're heavy serving and learning.
Yeah.
And so it's all weighted differently. But those are kind of the 4 buckets that we approach all of these with, and how to structure it in a way so that when they leave here, they are prepared for the next season of ministry, whatever that may be.
All right, so when they leave here is after a 3-year serving in the life of this church, a far greater commitment than most of them have made at that point in terms of vocation. It's oftentimes, for the bulk of them, right after college, right after undergrad. I'm called to vocational ministry. I'm stepping in to the life of this church that I know and I love, and I've likely interned for already at this point. Or in the case of Cole, you married into this church in so many ways,
Yeah,
right?
That's
When he told his story earlier in the summer about why he would want to work for the church, it was very much man, the Lord's gifting through my wife, and that is a real calling into the life of this church. And so that's big picture overview of the residency.
Right.
It's 3 years. What does a week look like? What's typical for them? How many hours a week are they working? Some of those nuts and bolts of the residency itself.
Yeah, so the residency weekly is about a 30-hour commitment. They're going to be here on Sunday mornings, just like all of the staff members are. They're going to be setting up for Grace Kids. They're going to be setting up coffee, getting that going, doing all the things that, honestly, all the pastors and other staff members are doing, making sure the computers are working the way they're supposed to be for the Grace Kids check-in area, checking the bathrooms, doing all the things that all of us do, and then relationally connecting throughout the day, or problem solving and putting out fires throughout the Sunday morning, just like all of us are. They're viewed as a staff member who's available, just like anybody else is. And so they're filling the gaps like the interns are in Grace Kids, or as an usher walking into the worship space. Then throughout the week, they are, depending on the year, that they are either the year of their residency. They're either helping every single ministry. So, I mean, a weekly, a week-to-week look at Cole is going to be vastly different. And so he came in week 1 of his residency and was full bore Grace Games, just knocking it out of the park. Whatever was asked of him, he said yes to.
Yes.
And then the next week was totally opposite,
right?
Of connecting with college guys and spending time prepping for different things that we've asked him to prep for. And so, whereas Knox is going into his 2nd year of residency in the fall, and right now, actually this week, he's prepping to speak at students at the student ministry gathering. And so, just the weekly hours look so vastly different.
Yes.
But they're all revolved around helping the ministries of the church accomplish what God has called us to, and relationally, in a relational ministry. And so all of them are asked to meet with people that we've asked them to meet with. And so whether it's specifically college students or young adults, and getting coffee and lunches and breakfast, or it is meeting up and playing basketball. Sometimes it looks that way. And played pickleball with some guys last night. Our residents were there. And so it's like, those are the things that we're asking of them as we continue to pour into one another.
So the internship on one end of the spectrum, a 1-year commitment for college juniors and seniors for the most part. A residency, a 3-year commitment for those who feel called to vocational ministry, whether it be in kids ministry or it be as a pastor of a church, whether that's church planter or executive pastor or student pastor. There's always been this in-between area that we've tried to nuance and tried to figure out. We've called a 1-year commitment to the church, a post-grad, an apprenticeship, where maybe for someone who's coming out of an internship, they're graduating, they don't really know what they want to do next. They're not entirely sure. I could be called to vocational ministry. I could not be called to vocational ministry. The apprenticeship was originally designed to be a 1-year commitment to the life of the church in order to discern that call or not. That was the whole purpose of it.
Yeah.
Had some similarities to the residency, the time commitment, not quite the same, a 20-hour-a-week commitment. That was an in-between option. Another one that we've really developed out of really an opportunistic approach to ministry was some of our former students who are back for the summer or current college students who are still here for the summer, serving as a summer resident. We don't call it a summer internship because the ask from an hours per week standpoint is far more aligned with the residency, closer to 30 hours a week. So Spirit Hall this summer, 2025, deeply involved in the life of our ministry, from grace games to everything else, very similar to Cole, thrown in the deep end, deeply involved. She's largely focused this summer in and around our kids ministry, and she's been a real gift to that team, I know. So while the internship is on one end and the residency is on the other, we're constantly asking the question, God, how can we find maybe some middle ground between those two commitments that aren't quite 3 years, but they're more than 10 hours a week your senior year in college? So that will continue to grow and evolve, I think, as the church does. We may come up with a completely different name for it, but for now, those are the options that we have in terms of pathways for leadership development here at Grace Auburn. You've mentioned this several times, and I think as we wrap this conversation, what I'd like for us to land on is the question of what is the goal? Like, if we were to think big picture, what's the goal of leadership development at Grace Auburn? And I think specifically, let's talk about the residency itself. I think the internship is in the same vein. The residency maybe just has, well, they're different. I would say let's do both. What's the goal of the intern program? Let's start there in terms of what is if you got to the end of a school year, what would success look like for an intern at Grace Auburn?
Man.
And let's assume they're a senior and they're graduating and they're not going into the residency.
Yeah. My measure of success is that wherever they land, they are searching for and join a healthy church and step into membership of that church. To me, what that has communicated is, A, they believe in church membership, which we believe in church membership, and so we want to communicate that message to our people. We believe that is what God has ordained for all of us to be faithful members of a local church, but also that I would hear that they are stepping in a way that is adding to life and giving life to those around them in that church. Like, to me, that means that they caught that that's what we did for them.
That's good.
And so too often I hear of college students that are coming in, whether it's from high school or from other places, and and that's not their experience of the local church. They weren't shepherded.
Right.
They weren't cared for.
Right.
They were taken from. And I think that we will have missed those opportunities if an intern leaves here and feels that way. At the same time, I don't think it is wise or what God has called us to. If an intern is here and all we do is buy them cookout milkshakes and do fun things with them, right? We haven't taught them what it's like to be a member of a church.
Yeah, that's good.
Being a member of a church is being a member of a family. There is give and take all the time.
Yes.
And it is out of the overflow of our joy of the Lord that we get to serve one another. And so both of those need to be true. Our yes needs to be on the table. But if our yes is on the table and everyone else's yes is on the table, we're serving one another, that's the body of Christ.
Yeah, that's good. All right, next step, residency. Someone spends 3 years with us. We've very recently graduated our first 3-year fully committed, fully fleshed out residents. Fleshed out, that's a terrible phrase for that. Like he failed out of it. No, he did not. Fuller Musselwhite has recently completed his residency, 3 years plus an internship before that. 3 years on staff with us as a resident. I would call him an absolute success in terms of what the residency was designed to do. How would you describe the goal of the residency? And with the same kind of idea, the same question, what does a successful residency, once it's completed, look like?
The goal of the residency is clarity in calling.
What do you mean?
And what I mean by that is not just what is next in terms of what ministry I want to serve in and lead in and that kind of thing, but also with the clarity comes confidence, and confidence in your calling, and confidence in the faithfulness of the Lord to carry you. And I think one of the things that God has brought me to a season of is that confidence of like, because I spent time outside of ministry, just recently, a few years ago, that before coming on staff here, God brought me back into ministry with a confidence that this is what he's called me to, because I was able to have that clarity in that season of what I'm now looking at as a sabbatical season out of ministry. God forced me into, and what's the term, that forced confinement that you refer to?
So it's an old Greek word, askesis.
Yeah.
It's forced confinement for the purpose of refinement.
Yeah. And I really do look at that season now as that for me, because I came out of that season with full confidence and clarity of I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
God's called me into this and placed this burden on my heart to shepherd and care for his people, specifically college students, in this way. And so there is nothing else that will suffice in that manner. And so to me, success as a resident's leaving here with that clarity and that confidence.
Yeah.
Because there are seasons of ministry that we're going to go through that are going to call into question.
Sure.
And they're going to make us go like, am I really cut out for this? Is this really what I signed up for?
Or is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Am I really dragging my family into this?
Yes.
Like those are a lot of the questions that we begin to ask. And that confidence and clarity that we hope for that they leave from, they can fall back on that calling of the Lord in that moment to go, I remember God doing that in my heart then, and that is still true today.
That's good. When we think about residents specifically, I get oftentimes the question, hey, are we trying to hire everyone? Like when someone finishes a residency, is it really just like somebody asked me a question one time, it was along the lines of, is it really just like a 3-year interview so that y'all can hire them at the end of it?
That's a good question.
And the answer is no, it is not that. If there is a role that is needed and necessary for the life of the church when they graduate, then we would be foolish not to consider them first, having raised them up from within as leaders. But we began this conversation talking about college students and young leaders in general. And the goal of our leadership development at Grace Auburn is that we might send them well, that we might gain by losing, as J.D. Greer of the Summit Church likes to say. And I think so much of our DNA really has been impacted by this understanding that when you care for, love, lead, develop, disciple, and launch young leaders, you are multiplying what God was doing there, which we've talked about with interns, we've talked about it with residents, that they might go and do it somewhere else.
That's right.
Whether that's in East Asia or it be in Atlanta or Birmingham or Dallas, we are so excited to raise up leaders to then send them, whether it be to Summit Collaborative churches that we're connected with and a part of, or just churches that we're connected with based on family relationships or friendships, or former members of our churches are now landed at these churches and they call us saying, hey, is there anybody coming out of the intern program or graduating that's moving to our town? And I look so forward to continuing to be able to do that, going, yes, oh my goodness, you have to at least know this college student who's getting ready to graduate, or you would be foolish not to hire this person based on what they've done with us. So I want you to wrap us up here as we land this conversation, just that heartbeat behind what the overall success of leadership development at Grace Auburn and where we're trying to go with it.
Yeah. Man, leadership development is such a unique thing. Oftentimes, and I say this from my own heart, oftentimes what I think about leadership development is raising up leaders who will serve here, who will make this church stronger and more effective for gospel ministry here in Auburn. And what God has continued to do in my heart, and I think it's because of your and Matt's leadership is to raise up and send out in a way that strengthens the bride of Christ. And the bride of Christ is not here in Auburn. The bride of Christ is everywhere across the globe.
Yes.
And continuing to reach the furthest nations. And so, like, to me, when I think about leadership development, we're strengthening the bride of Christ in a way that is not just here. And we may never see some of the benefits and the fruits of our labor, but when we are faithful, that is good enough.
Yes.
That is success, when we are faithful to what God has called us to raise up a generation of leaders to strengthen the bride of Christ.
On behalf of the Grace Auburn Church family, thank you for listening to the Grace Auburn Church podcast. If you'd like more information about partnering with us and our mission or ways that you can get connected, please go to our website, graceauburn.church.